Hello students. Today's first question is, if the set S consists of 5 consecutive positive integers, what is the sum of these 5 integers? So let us suppose these 5 integers are consecutive positive integers n plus 1, n plus 2, n plus 3 and n plus 4. These are consecutive positive integers. Now we need to find the sum of these. So sum of these will be equal to 5n 1 2 3 4 5 4 3 7 to 9 and 10, 5n plus 10, or 5 common n plus 2. So we need to find the value of 1 n for the first integer. Now moving to statement 1. Statement 1 tells us that the integer 11 is in S but 10 is not in S. So that means that 11 is in the set of this, but S is not equal to 10. So that means the S will be having 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15. Right? And we can easily find the sum. So we can say that the statement A is sufficient to answer the question. Since because 10 is not in the set, so it means that 11 and beyond 11 are the integers, up to 15 are the 5 integers, consecutive 5 positive integers. Moving to statement 2. The sum of the even integers in S is, so it says the sum of even integers, so this is S, in S is 26. So two cases arise over here out of this. One is, if the first number n is even, then n plus 2 and n plus 4 should be even, and their sum is equal to 26. So this means that thrice of n plus 6 should be equal to 26, or 3n should be equal to 26 minus 6, 3n equal to 20. This implies n is equal to 20/3. But since all these are positive integers, so 20/3 is not an integer, so this case is discarded. Now the other chance is that n plus 1 and n plus 3 are n plus 1 and n plus 3 are even. So their sum is 26. So this means 2n plus 4 is equal to 26. So 2n is equal to 22, n is equal to 11. So if n is 11, then the other numbers will be 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15. Right? So this means that statement B is also sufficient to give us a single answer. So we can, if both statement A and B are individually sufficient, then we tick the option D, that each statement is individually sufficient to answer the question. If x is greater than 0, what is the value of x? So we have been given that x is greater than 0. We need to find the value of x. Moving to statement 1. Statement 1 tells us that x cube minus x is equal to 0. This implies if I take x common, I would be left with x square minus 1 equal to 0. So this becomes a square minus b square. So I can write x minus 1, x plus 1 equal to 0. From here I can have three values of x. First is x equal to 0. From here I will get x equal to 1, and from here I will get x equal to minus 1. But we have been given that x is greater than 0. So this value and minus 1 value will be discarded. So we have a single value of x which is equal to 1. So we can say that x is equal to 1. So statement 1 is sufficient to answer this question. Now moving to statement 2. Statement 2 says that cube root of x minus x is equal to 0. Now this implies if I shift this to other side, so I will be getting cube root of x equal to x. Right? Now cubing both sides, I will get here x raised to power 3 into 1/3 equal to x cube. So this implies x is equal to x cube, right? Or I can say x cube minus x equal to 0. So this is again the rephrasing of the statement 1. So this is basically the statement 1. So this will also lead us to three values, out of which one value is x equal to 1 will be taken out. So statement B is also alone sufficient to answer this question. So if A and B both are alone sufficient, then we say statement D is the right answer, that both statements alone are sufficient to answer the question. A total of 20 amounts are entered on a spreadsheet that has 5 rows and 4 columns. So 5 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and 4 columns, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So I will mark this R1, R2, R3, R4 and R5. So this is C1, C2, C3 and C4. So it has 5 rows and 4 columns. Each of the 20 positions in the spreadsheet contains one amount. So all these positions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, these contain some amount. So total amount which it contains, total values are 20. Right? In each row it has 4 values and total 5 rows. Now the average arithmetic mean of the amounts in row I is Ri, where I is greater than and equal to 1 and less than equal to 5. So Ri represents the average arithmetic mean of the amount. So this plus this plus this plus this divided by 4 gives us the R1 gives us the average arithmetic mean of row 1, then row 2, so on, R3, R4 and R5. Now the average of the amounts in column J is Cj. So average is given by 1, 2, 3, 4. So the average of these 5 elements is given by C1. What is the average of all 20 amounts in the spreadsheet? So we need to find the average of all 20 amounts. Now moving to statement 1. Statement 1 tells us that R1 plus R2 plus R3 plus R4 plus R5 is equal to 550. What is R1? R1 is basically summation of all the elements in R1. So 4 elements in R1, summation of that divided by 4 is equal to R1, right? Because it has been given that Ri is the average of the amount in the row 1. So total summation will be equal to, if I multiply this by this, so I would be getting 4R1 plus 4R2 plus 4R3 plus 4R4 plus 4R5. So I will be multiplying 5500 by 4. 550 multiplied by 4. So total amount would be equal to 550 divided by 4. So that will be equal to 2200, right? So this gives us the total value of all the sum of all the values, because the sum of averages of all the rows is this. So since there are 4 elements in every row and this is the sum of all the averages, so solely divided by 4, so this will give me automatically the total sum of all the elements. So dividing it by the total elements 20, so this comes out to be 110. So this is what has been asked us, what is the average of all 20 amounts in the spreadsheet. So we can say that statement A is sufficient to answer the question. Now moving to statement 2. Statement 2 tells us that C1 plus C2 plus C3 plus C4 is equal to 440, right? Now in each column we are having 5 elements, so multiplying both sides by 5, so I would be getting sum of all the elements, so that will be equal to 5 into 440. So this is again equal to 2200, dividing it by total number of elements 20, so this will give us the average, which is equal to 110. So this is also sufficient to answer the question. So statement B is also sufficient. So in this case we will say that both the statements alone are sufficient to answer the question, that statement D is the right answer. Was the range of amounts of money that company Y budgeted for its projects last year equal to the range of amount of money that it budgeted for its projects this year? So let us suppose A1 and B1 be the greatest and least amounts of money that company Y budgeted for its project last year. So we will say this is least amount and this is the greatest amount which company budgeted last year, right? Now let us suppose A2 and B2 be the amount company budgeted this year. So A2 be the least and B2 be the greatest, right? Now the question asks, was the range of the amount of money that company budgeted for its project last year equal to the range of the amounts of money that it budgeted for its projects this year? So range basically becomes B1 minus A1 for the last year. So it asks that is B1 minus A1 equal to B2 minus A2? Is this is the question. Now moving to statement 1. Statement 1 tells us both last year and this year company Y budgeted money for 12 projects. So total projects for both years are 12, and the least amount of money that it budgeted for a project was $400. So least amount is basically, so we have been given that A1 is equal to A2 is equal to $400. So but we are not given anything about B1 and B2, so we can't find the range, and since we can't find the range, we are not able to calculate whether these are equal or not. So we can say that statement A is not sufficient to answer this question. Now moving to statement 2. Statement 2 tells us that both last and this year the average arithmetic mean amount of money that company Y budgeted per project was 2000. So it basically tells us what the arithmetic mean of the total projects that the company budgeted per project was 2000, but it doesn't give any information about the least and greatest investment in the project and the number of projects. So statement B is also not sufficient to answer the question. Now this means that option D is also out of question. Now we will analyze for option C, which states combining statement first and 2. Now first statement tells us that the least project A1 and A2 is equal to $400, right? Now it also tells us that company Y budgeted money for 12 projects, so total number of projects are 12. Now the average of each project was 2000, so basically that means that the total Let us suppose for the first year, one project had 400 and the average is 2000. So average is 2000. So still we don't know the greatest project in both the cases. What was its value? So statement C is also not sufficient to answer this question. So for this case, we will say that statement E, that both the statements still are not sufficient to answer the question. If A, B, C, D are numbers on the number line shown, and if the tick marks are equally spaced, what is the value of A plus C? So we have been given 4 numbers on a number line A, B, C and D, and it says that if the tick marks are equally spaced, so that means the distance between this and the distance between this and this is same. So let us suppose the distance to be x, x and x. So first is A. Now I can write B is equal to A plus x. I can write C is equal to A plus 2x, and I can write D is equal to A plus 3x. Right? Now we have been asked to find what is the value of A plus C. So A plus C is basically equal to A plus C is A plus 2x. So this is A plus 2x. So this is twice of A plus twice of x. Taking 2 common, I get twice of A plus x. So basically I need to find the value of A as well as the equal distance between all these numbers. Now moving to statement 1. Statement 1 tells me that A plus B is equal to minus 8. Now P is equal to A plus x, so I can write A plus x equal to minus 8. This implies twice of A plus x equal to minus 8. But this doesn't give us any value about A and x. So I will say that statement A is not sufficient alone to answer this question. Now moving to statement 2. Statement 2 says A plus D is equal to 0. So now this means A plus D is A plus 3x. So A plus 3x equal to 0. So this means twice of A plus thrice of x is equal to 0. So this is not able to solve and find us the value of twice of A plus x. So we will say that statement B is also not sufficient to answer this question. No. This means that statement D is also not sufficient, that both the statements individually are not sufficient. Now we'll check for statement C, that combining statements 1 and 2. Now statement 1 tells us that twice of A plus x is equal to minus of 8. And twice of A plus 3x is equal to 0. Now, as soon as you write this, you see that there are 2 equations and 2 variables. So you can say that statement C is sufficient to answer this question. I mark this option C and move ahead. But for the sake of the question, we will solve this. So since they are having equal coefficients, so I will try to have subtracting. So this will get cancelled. So x minus 3x will be minus of 2x. Minus 8 plus 0 is minus 8. So I will getting value of x equal to 4. So this gives out that they are 4 units apart. Now in order to find the value of, I'll put the value of x in first equation or the second. So twice of A plus 4 is equal to minus 8. So twice of A is equal to minus 12 and A is equal to minus 6. Right? From this I can calculate the value of A plus C, which is twice of A plus x. So that will be equal to twice of minus 6 plus 4. So this is basically twice of minus 2, which is equal to minus 4. Right? So this means that statement C is sufficient to answer the question. And the value of A plus C is minus 4. Is x multiplied by xm is less than ym. So we need to find is xm less than ym. Now moving to statement 1. Statement 1 tells us that x is greater than y. So we'll consider 2 cases over here. So let us suppose, since let us suppose the value of x is 3 and y is 2. So in this case, x is greater than y. So we are fulfilling the condition. Now let us suppose the value of m to be minus 1. So as m is minus 1, so xm will become minus 3 and ym will become minus 2. In this case, minus 3 is less than 2. So we can say that xm is less than ym. So we can say yes, this is possible. Now if I take the value of m equal to 1, in this case 3 is greater than 2, so xm is greater than ym. So we have no for this. So we can say, if we are having may or may not be situation, so we'll say that statement A is not sufficient to answer our question. Now moving to statement 2. Statement 2 tells us that m is less than 0. So that means m is negative. Now we don't know the value of x and y. So let us assume some values for, let us suppose x is 2 and y is 1. So practically x is greater than y. But if I multiply m, which is negative, so this equality sign will change and this will become mx less than my. But if I suppose x equal to 1 and y equal to 2, so in that case x will be less than y. And if I multiply m, which is negative to both sides, so xm will be equal to y of m. So 1 multiplied by minus 1 will be minus 1 and this will be minus 2. So minus 1 is greater than minus 2. So we are getting both the options that mx is less than my and mx is greater than my. So this also says that statement B is not sufficient. So this means statement D is also that both the statements individually are sufficient is not an option. So now we will consider for option C. So option C states combining statements 1 and 2. Now, statement 1 tells that x is greater than y, and statement 2 tells that m is less than 0. So that means m is negative, and when I will multiply a negative into this inequality, so inequality will change its sign. So xm is equal to ym, is less than equal to ym, is less than ym. So this answers this question concretely that this is yes. So we can say that by combining statements C and 1 and 2, we get the answer that yes, xm is less than ym. So statement C is the right answer. If y is equal to x square minus 6 plus 9, what is the value of x? So we have been given y is equal to x square minus 6x plus 9. We need to find the value of x. Now, if you take a closer look at this, so this is basically x whole square plus 3 whole square minus 2 dot x dot 3, which is minus 6x. So this basically becomes x minus 3 whole square by using the property a square plus b square minus 2ab is equal to a minus b whole square. So this basically becomes y is equal to x minus 3 whole square. Right? We need to find the value of x. Now, statement 1. Statement 1 tells us that y is equal to 0. So this equation changes to x minus 3 whole square equal to 0, which means that x is equal to 3. So we have a sure answer. So that means that statement A is sufficient to answer the question, and the value of x is 3. Now moving to statement 2. Statement 2 tells that x plus y is equal to 3. Now if x plus y is equal to 3, then y will be equal to x minus 3, right? So if y is equal to x minus 3, then so now we will consider some values for this. Now if x is equal to 3, if x is equal to 3, then y becomes 3 minus 3 equal to 0. And if I put this value over here, so this becomes 0 is equal to 3 minus 3, 0. So LHS is equal to RHS. So we can say that the value of x is equal to 3. Now let us consider some other value. Let us suppose x is equal to 2. So if x is equal to 2, this is y is equal to 3 minus s, not x minus 3, 3 minus x. So when x is equal to 2, y is equal to 1, 3 minus 2, 1. Now if I put this value over here, so 1 is equal to x is 2 minus 3 minus 1 whole square. So this becomes 1. So we see by having the value x equal to 3, this equation gets satisfied. But by having x equal to 2 also, this value that gets satisfied and this also gets satisfied. So we are having two values of x. So we can say that B is not sufficient to answer our and give us a concrete value of x. So for this question, we will say that the statement A alone is sufficient to answer the question, and the value of x is 3. What is the probability that Lee will make exactly 5 errors on a certain typing test? So we need to find what is the probability that Lee will make exactly 5 errors on a certain typing test. Nothing else has been given, so we will directly move to statement 1. Statement 1 tells that the probability that Lee will make 5 or more errors on the test is 0.27. So we don't know anything else about this, so we are not able to find. So it basically tells that the probability that probability of Lee making errors 5 or more than that is 0.27. So statement A, we will say that statement A is not sufficient to answer the question. Now moving to statement 2. Statement 2 says the probability that Lee will make 5 or fewer errors on the test is 0.85. So 5 or fewer. So that means basically probability of Lee making errors 5 or less than that is 0.85. So this also doesn't answer our question that what is the probability that Lee will make exactly 5 errors on a certain typing test. So statements A and B are not sufficient. So statement D is also not sufficient. Now we'll check for statement C by combining statements 1 and 2. Now we need to find whether what is the probability that Lee will make 5 errors. Now probability of having that Lee will make errors more than 5, this and this, so probability is basically less than equal to 5 or greater than equal to 5 is equal to 1, because these are the only options, right? Now it has been given that P, so let us suppose this probability is A and this is B, right? Having errors, so greater than is this one. So this is, let us suppose this is B and this is A. Now P, A or B, we know by the formula of probability is always equal to P of probability of A plus probability of B minus probability of A union B. So now you see in the union, this is greater than equal to 5, less than equal to 5. So this is the probability which we need to find, which is the probability where they are coinciding, and that is a probability of having exactly 5 errors in a certain typing test, right? Because if A is the probability that it will have less than equal to 5 errors and B is the probability of greater than 5, so union is only when it is having 5 errors in a certain typing test. Now we know that probability of having less than or greater than equal to 5 is 1, and by combining we know that probability of A, which is less than equal to 5, is 0.85, plus probability of B is having errors greater than equal to 5 is 0.27, minus probability of A union B. So if we add this, so this becomes 0.85 and 0.27. So 1 minus, if we shift it to this side, so this becomes 0.85 minus 0.27 equal to minus probability of A union B, right? Now if we subtract this, this becomes minus of 2, 8 to 10, 100, 12. So this is basically minus 1.12, 1 minus, so probability of having exactly 5 errors will be equal to, so minus and minus gets cancelled, so probability of A union B will be equal to 0.12. This I solved for the sake of the question. As soon as you reached here, you came to know that the option C, that the both statements combined are sufficient to answer. You need not to solve all of this in the paper, right? As time limit is the greatest concern over there. So for this, option C is the right answer. If P is a positive integer, is 2 raised to power P plus 1 is a prime number. So we have been given P is a positive integer, right? We need to find that is 2 raised to power P plus 1 a prime number, right? Now moving to statement 1. Statement 1 says that P is a prime number. So we'll check by putting some value of P as a prime number. So first we put the value of P equal to 2. So 2 raised to power 2 plus 1 is 5. So 5 is a prime number. So we can say yes, 2 raised to power P is a prime number. Yes, but we will check for some other values also. Now if I put P is equal to 3, which is also a prime number, so 2 raised to power 3 plus 1, it becomes to 8 plus 1, 9. But this is not a prime number. So we are getting yes as well as no. So we'll say statement A is not sufficient to answer our question, because for some values of P it is coming out to be yes, and so for some value it is coming out to be no. Now moving to statement 2. Statement 2 says P is an even number. So P is an even number. Now first we will put some value. So let us suppose if I put P equal to 2, again I will be getting 5, which example I have used in statement 1. So in that case I can say that 2 raised to power P plus 1 is equal to 5, which is a prime number, right? So I can say yes. But hold on, if we put the value of P equal to 4, then it becomes 2 raised to power 4 plus 1, so this becomes 17. So this is also a prime number. Now if I put the value of P equal to 6, so this becomes 2 raised to power 6 plus 1. So this is 64 plus 1, 65. Now is 65 a prime number? No, because it has more than 1 and 65, it has also a factor 5. And there will be more factors. So this is not a prime number. So we are getting yes as well as no. So we can say that statement B is also not sufficient to answer our question. So this means statement D is also not valid over here. So now we'll try for the option C. And if it is also not possible to find out the concrete answer, then we'll say statement E is the right answer. So combining, we get first says P is a prime number. So from first we deduce that P is a prime number, and from second we come to know that P is even. Now you tell me what can be the value of P if it is a prime number and it is even. So there is only one value, which is, so this is also, we should know that only one prime number is even, that is 2. So that is 2 square plus 1, so this becomes 5. So now we can say yes, 2 raised to power P is plus 1 is a prime number, because P is even as well as prime, and only value for this is 2. So statement C, we can say that statement C, that both statements A and B combined are able to answer this question, that yes, 2 raised to power P plus 1 is a prime number. What percent of the students at University X are enrolled in a science course but are not enrolled in a biology course? So we need to find what percentage of the students. So let us suppose the total number of students be n. So we need to find how many students, what percent of students are enrolled in a science course but are not enrolled in a biology course. Now moving to statement 1. Now, it says that 28% of the students at University X are enrolled in a biology course. So from here we know that biology is also a subject of science course. Right? So there will be two cases. One is not with biology and with not biology. And science course, those who have taken would be some percentage of the total number of N students. The first statement tells us that 28% of the students at University X are enrolled in a biology course. Now let us suppose 100% of the students which are enrolled in University X, that is N, are enrolled in science course. Right? So these are science course. This means that total number of students enrolled in University X, that is N, all have enrolled for science course. Right? Now, statement 1 tells 28% of the students at University X are enrolled in a biology course. So 100 minus 28%. So this becomes 72%. So this is the percentage of students which have been enrolled in science course but not in biology course. Right? Because 28% are enrolled in biology course. Right? But let us suppose if only 50% of the total students enrolled in University X, 50% are enrolled in science course. So 50 minus 28% becomes 22%. So in that case, those students who are enrolled in science course but not biology course will be 22%. So we're getting different values for this. So we can say that statement A is not sufficient to answer our question. Now, statement 2. Statement 2 tells us that 70% of the students at University X who are enrolled in a science course are enrolled in a biology course. So this tells us that 70% of the students at University X who are enrolled in a science course. Right? So 100 minus 70. So if we suppose that 100% students are enrolled out of N in science course, so 100 minus 70%. So this will be 30%. So this will be the percentage of students who are enrolled in science course but not biology. Right? Again, if I let us suppose 40% of the total are enrolled. So remaining will be 40% are enrolled from this total in science course. So 70% of 40. 70% of 40 will be enrolled in science course and not biology course. Right? So 70% of 40 will be, this will be biology, and minus 100 minus this 100% minus this will give us science course but not biology. So this is also not sufficient to answer our question. So now this means that statement D, that both the statements individually are sufficient, is also out of question. Now moving to statement C, which says combining statement 1 and 2. Right? Now taking statement 1 and 2 together. Statement 1 says that 28% of the students at University X are enrolled in biology course. And statement 2 tells us that 70% of the students at University X who are enrolled in a science course are enrolled in a biology course. So what does that mean? Basically, this means that 0.28%, which is 28%, and if X is the percentage of students at University X, so 70% of that, so 0.7 of X. So these are the students which are enrolled in science course and are enrolled in biology course. And from statement 2, first we get the percentage of this to be 28%. So 0.828 should be equal to 0.7x, or from this we can get the value of X equal to 0.28 divided by 0.7. So this comes out to be into 100 into 10. So 4. So this is basically 40%. So X is 40. Now these are the students who are enrolled in science course, and 28% of the students are enrolled in biology course. So 40 minus 28 is equal to 12%. So 12% of the students, total students which are enrolled in science course, are 40% of the total students, and out of this 28% are enrolled for biology. So 40 minus 28 gives us the number of students who are enrolled in science course but not in biology course. So we get the value percentage in. So we can say that statement C is combined statements 1 and 2. We get answer the question that what percentage of students are enrolled in science course but not in biology course. So for this question, statement C is the right option. In the xy plane, point R, S lies on a circle with center at the origin. So if we draw a coordinate system with circle with center at origin, let us suppose this is a circle and point R, S lies on this circle. So this is R because the first one is always X and this represents Y. So this is S. So we need to find the value of R square plus S square. Now you see O, A, B. In this O, A and B is the perpendicular. So OA, with the help of Pythagoras semi triangle OAB, OA square will be equal to AB square plus OB square. Now OA, this is basically the radius of this circle because center is at the origin. 0, comma 0. Now let us suppose the radius to be r. So r square will be equal to ab square is s square plus r square. So to find the value of r square plus s square, we need to find the value of the radius. So if we know the radius, we can find the value of r square plus s square. Now moving to statement 1. Statement 1 says that the circle has radius 2. So we have indirectly given r equal to 2. So we can find the value of r square plus s square to be equal to 2 square equal to 4. So we can say that statement A is sufficient to answer our question. Now moving to statement 2. Statement 2 says that the point root 2 comma minus root 2 lies on the circle. So this is x and this is y. So if origin is the center, so with positive value of x and negative value of y, the point will lie somewhere here. So this is represented by root 2 minus root 2. So if I draw from here, so this represents root 2 and this represents minus root 2 and this is r. So basically r is equal to r square plus s square. So if I am able to find r square, I can find it from root 2 square whole square plus minus of root 2 whole square. So this is equal to 2 plus 2 equal to 4 and this is basically r square. So r square plus s square value is equal to 4. So I can say that statement B is also sufficient to answer this question, right? So for this, the right option will be statement D, that both the statements individually are sufficient to answer the question, right? Thank you for today's lecture. Bye bye. Take care. Thank you. Bye bye.